In the early 70s, a group of students at C.W. Baker High School in Baldwinsville, New York, set out to build a radio station that would create a unique broadcasting experience, not only for them, but for a multitude of generations to come. Nearly a half-century later, it's time to hear firsthand from those who went behind the mic, telling the stories of how this station changed their lives, both in the studio and beyond, as we celebrate 50 years of broadcasting excellence on WBXL 90.5 FM. This is The Buzz Goes Gold.
Hello, welcome to another edition of The Buzz Goes Gold. I'm your host, Jordan Hayes, and I'm here with Max Smith from the class of 2011, so that's the newest class that we've had so far. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me over.
So let's start from the beginning. How did you get interested in the radio station, and what made you decide to join the DXL club?
I've always loved music since I was little. You know, I was born in a music family. My dad was at a local band. He played keyboard. His mom, my grandma, she did stage acting for a living. And I've always loved listening to radio ever since I was a kid. I learned about WBXL when I was in 9th grade. They had several students from Baker High School who were coming over to Durkee Junior High at the time, and they were talking about some of the things that Baker High School had. And one of the students mentioned about WBXL, and I told myself, I got to do it because that's one of my passions. And but I didn't start doing it till when I was in 12th grade, so I had to wait for a few years.
You're not the only one that started late. So a lot of other guests I've had started in their senior year, so you're not alone. So who was the advisor back then? What?
I don't remember the teacher's name was, but I do know that Alex Nagy, a student who also graduated with me, was in charge of it.
Oh, okay. I know the family's name, so I actually graduated with Alex's older sister, Elizabeth, or Liz, in 2007. So I know the Nagys. We actually got Phil on earlier in the podcast. So, and I do know that Alex was the GM at the time. So, what was the class like for you?
I actually played hard rock and heavy metal songs from my iPod, and I did WBXL every Monday after school, sometimes Tuesday if I couldn't do Mondays. And I just played hard rock and metal songs, you know, for about an hour and a half. And then one of my favorite events was, you know, the countdown for like each, you know, hard rock and metal song from every, you know, year within the 80s. So one day will be 1980, the following week will be 1981. And then 82, and then upwards.
Interesting.
And then just give a little interesting about things that happen on certain each years. You know, births, deaths, American history, world history, things that you know, movies, TV shows, that sort of stuff.
Fascinating, because after I graduated high school. And then I went to OCC for 2 years. I eventually joined the Syracuse radio station, the WJPC Z89, and I did a similar countdown show, but I didn't do hard rock. I did more top 40 pop, hip-hop, R&B, some rock from each year, beginning in 1990 and then going all the way up to 2003, and then even beyond. And I'm familiar with those countdown shows. To this day, I listen to 1840, and doing those is a lot of fun. You want to share more information about not just the music, but as you said, the cultural and the historical events that were happening during that time. So I'm glad you were. I'm glad that you told me about that because it sounds like you and I share the same passion. I'm sure it was fun.
I also did documentary on famous artists, some of my favorite bands. I did documentaries on AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Disturbed, Bon Jovi. That's all I could think of. And then I also did play a couple of non-hard rock and metal songs. Bands I grew up in the late '90s that were part of my childhood, like Blink 182, Smash Mouth,
Yeah.
Fastball. And then on my last day at school, I spent the last 45 minutes on WBXL. And out of all the shows I did, that was my favorite one of all. It was my last day at school, and I spent the last period at WBXL just behind the microphone for one last time. And I studied the clock very well to figure out what time the school bell would ring. And I wanted to do a countdown so that way people could hear the school bell. And, right before the school bell rang on my last day, the last thing I said was, and for those who are just tuning in, I got 2 words for you. So long. And then the school bell rang so that people can hear it. And after that, silence. At that point, I was no longer a student and no longer a DJ at WBXL. So it was my way to say goodbye to everyone and goodbye to the class of 2011 because I'm already graduated.
That was nice. It sounds like you and I would get together very well. I probably would have done the same thing. My actual final show was a little bit different. I brought in not every senior DJ, but I was one who liked to do a lot of big collaborative projects. And so my idea, and I thought it was executed very well. I brought in every senior DJ that I could. I couldn't get all of them, but I had a wide variety of senior DJs, and I'd let them come on. I'd give them like a 10 to 15 minute time slot, and I'd have them come on and do a mini show, just doing one last time there. And it ended up, we got down to 3 groups. Yes, we got down, in total, I think I had about 3 groups of DJs, not including myself, and we got through the first 2. The first 2 groups had a 10 to 15 minute slot, and then it was just me and someone else. I believe his name was Aaron Spadero, shout out. And we just carried the rest of the show. And it ended up being 2 hours. And it was a blast that I got to do. And similar to you, I just wanted a way to give everybody who was graduating at least an opportunity to do one last hurrah and to go out with a bang. So thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to know, what were your thoughts? So what are your thoughts on the type of final show format that I did compared to you?
I think that was phenomenal. I thought it was so thoughtful for you to gather as many people around for one last time.
Thanks. It was a big effort. Anyway, back to you. It's not much about me as it is about you. So, if you could rank your top 5 songs and artists, or at least the top 3 songs and artists from your entire time, could you give me could you give me a ranking or a mini countdown of at least the top 3, maybe top 5 songs in our either songs and or artists that you played?
I played a lot of Disturbed songs, most notably Land of Confusion, because that was my favorite Disturbed song. Fastball, The Way, because that was probably one of my favorite songs growing up as a kid. The third one. If I had a third choice, probably Stan Bush. He wrote a few songs for the 1986 movie, The Transformers, the movie. My favorite, the one song I played was Dare.
Okay, I didn't quite get. Tell me, what was the band's name again? I didn't hear that one.
Stan Bush.
Oh, okay.
Stan Bush, and the song was Dare. It was used in the 1986 movie, The Transformers, the movie.
Oh, nice. I haven't heard of that. I'm going to have to look that up. You know, did you know that a fun fact about Fastball's The Way, it was actually inspired by a true story? Did you know that Fastball's The Way was actually inspired by a true story, a tragic true story?
Yes, I do.
A true story nonetheless.
Yes, I know all about the story about that song. Tony Scalzo is the lead singer for that band, and in 1997, he and the band were writing songs for their second album, All the Pain Money Could Buy, and he was trying to come up with ideas, and he decided to watch the news, and the top story was about this elderly couple that was missing in Texas, and from what I've researched, this was their second marriage, and things did not go accordingly to plan. The husband went through brain surgery while the wife was showing signs of memory loss, and it was revealed that she had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and they didn't want to go through the pain. So they just got in their 1987 Oldsmobile and then drove off, and without telling anybody. So they went missing, and they found their car off a road into a ravine in Arkansas, and it was the couple that was reported missing. And, you know, it was just about them just not going through the pain. They just want to stay together, all that stuff. It's just really sad.
Yes, it is. And I'm sorry, I just pulled into my home driveway. It probably caught my Wi-Fi, so that you probably skipped over a little bit of what you just said. I'm sorry about that. But I got the gist. And I did some research on that while I was doing Z89. So anyway, thank you for sharing that. And then, Did you know Disturbed covered The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel?
Yes, I do. And Disturbed has had a history of doing a lot of covers, not just Land of Confusion and The Sound of Silence. They've done Shout by Tears for Fears. I still haven't found what I'm looking for by YouTube. They did a cover of Living After Midnight by Judas Priest. And then they did another cover by Faith No More, but I forgot. Midlife Crisis, that's what it is that they've done.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, 2 of the songs are off of their album, The Lost Children. Shout was off of Sickness. Land of Confusion is off of 10,000 Fists. I still haven't found what I'm looking for. It was actually a hidden track in Asylum. And then The Sound of Silence is off of Immortalized.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
You're a walking encyclopedia. I like you already. You're a walking musical encyclopedia. I like you already. I tend to think that I have a fair amount of musical knowledge. So it's interesting when I run into somebody who I feel I've met my match with. So thank you for sharing all this encyclopedic musical knowledge with the listeners. Okay, we're going to move on a little bit to what you did after graduation. Please tell me where did you go, what you do after graduation.
After I graduated high school in 2011, I went to a railroad school called the National Academy of Railroad Sciences in Overland Park, Kansas. They're a railroad school located within the campus of Johnson County Community College in Overland Park, Kansas. I studied the Fast Track Conductor Certificate course, which lasts about 6 weeks. And so I graduated from there, and then for a while I've struggled trying to get a job with the railroads, and even with the railroads I've struggled to try to find jobs. So I've had like a couple of like minor part-time jobs in 2012, and then for a while, beginning in 2013, I worked for Wegmans for about 6.5 years, and I'm currently working for Napa Auto Parts in Syracuse. But I'm still trying to get a job with the railroad. I know outside of work, I volunteer on a tourist railroad out of Utica, and I've been with them for 11 years.
Wow, is that the Adirondack?
Yes.
That's the Adirondack Railroad?
Yes, that's the Adirondack Railroad. It runs between Utica and Tupper Lake.
Yes, I've seen it when I've gone up to Old Forge. Sometimes I've seen it. They do a lot of great things there, and even though I haven't actually been on it, it sounds like it's a good experience to do.
It's definitely a beginner's railroad for a lot of younger people to, get some hands-on experience, and then they stay there for a few years, and then they go off somewhere like Amtrak or Norfolk Southern or Metro North.
So what do you actually do? What's your day-to-day at that?
Right now, I'm a driver for Napa Auto Parts. I've been with them for about 4 years now.
Okay, talking about the Adirondack Railroad. What do you do at the Adirondack Railroad? What are your tasks or your major responsibilities?
I am a conductor for the railroad. The Adirondack Railroad is a tourist railroad that operates between Utica and Tupper Lake, and I'm a conductor for them. The conductor is the person in charge of the train and all the crew on that train, sort of like captain on a ship. On a ship, you got the driver, you got the navigators, the lookouts, and then you got the captain who's in charge of them. And then, meanwhile, on a train, you got the engineer who operates the locomotive, which pulls the cars on the train, and then you got a brakeman. If you got a steam locomotive, you got the fireman, and then you got a conductor, and then maybe an assistant conductor. So it's a big responsibility since you're in charge of the whole crew. And then, and because you're on a passenger railroad, you got passengers that are under your liability. So it is a big responsibility, especially when you're dealing with passengers and their safety. Yes,
I could imagine. It is, and I haven't done anything like that, but it sounds a lot of. If it's what you like to do, then I'm all for it. Now let me ask you about the lessons that you learned from WBXO, because that's really important. Even though you didn't go into a career in broadcasting, I'm sure there were a lot of lessons that you took away from your WBXO experience that you still apply to your life today. Please tell me what those lessons are, and how do you attribute in general your experience at BXL to where you are in the present?
Well, being a DJ, it's like being a great communicator. You've got to have people listen to you and listen to your thoughts, your ideas, and you learn something from what people listen from you. So rather could be like a history about music, or if you're talking about the news or weather, it's good to learn. And I really learned how to be a great communicator. And not all things that I've done for WBXL is script. I have to memorize some of the things that I was about to say before I could go on live. And I've actually learned how to do that, in today's society.
Okay, so some examples of how you apply that in your work or in your hobbies or volunteer or whatever. Any specific examples of how you would apply those lessons to what you're doing now?
Well, definitely. On the railroad, we used to have audio speakers that were linked up by car to car, and there was a microphone. And I used to do narration back when we used to have audio on our cars. And, I had a script that was hand typed by me. And, I felt like, being a DJ when we passed through some of the villages or scenic landmarks, or the history of the locomotives or cars. And when you're behind a microphone at a DJ, you sort of have a script on what you're going to be talking through the microphone live on air. So that definitely helped out.
That's a perfect example of taking what you're doing at WBXL and applying it to the real world. And I applaud you for being able to do that, transform your experience, because that's ultimately what the station's trying to teach. Not just playing music, not just being on air, but also being an effective communicator. And the life lessons that I learned on the station, commitment from me, but most importantly from others, because what I did a lot of interviews from not just students, but from people outside in the community, and I had a guest planned. So let's say I have a guest planned one day, but then they either don't show up, or they're showing up late, or they decide they don't want to do it, and I have to adapt to that. So I had to learn about what it means to be committed to something. So that's not a lesson that you get from reading a script or playing a song. That's something real that I still remember, and sometimes I think about it even now. And it's also, you got to think about change and adaptability, because let's say go in with one plan, and then something else comes up, and that screws that screws your whole show for the day. But I got to have a show, and the show must go on. So I got to think on my feet and make the show the best that I could, given the circumstances. Your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I do miss it, and I've done everything I can to be commitment to do what I felt like, talking on the microphone, be commitment and stay positive and, try not to mess up, be it on live air or try not to say like one of those foul words that you're not allowed to say on air.
Yeah.
And just think ahead.
Yep, that's very important. You have to think about exactly what you want to say before you're going to say it, because if you don't, that sometimes means you stumble over your words, and just like I'm doing, or most of the time what I'm doing, it doesn't really come out as coherent. So, Switching gears now, do you run into anybody, or do you stay in touch with anybody from not just the station, but high school in general that you were close with?
There was a guy who graduated in 2012. He is Alex Nagy's younger cousin, Thomas Fink. He was sort of like my co-host for a couple of episodes when we did WBXL back in the day. And, we both had a lot of similar hobbies. We did like some of the late 90s, early 2000s music. So we did play a couple of those. I haven't talked to Thomas in about 4 years. We've been so busy. And then Alex Nagy, I stay in touch with him for a few years after we had graduated, but we've lost contact. So I have no idea how he's doing. I know what Thomas is up to, but we haven't talked to each other in years because we've been busy.
No, I get it. I understand.
And they were basically like the only two people from WBXL that I stay in contact with, and that was it.
Okay, well, that's better than none. It's important to have just one, even that one friend, that one constant contact. That's just as important as any.
And there was one more person I forgot. There was one more person that I forgot, but he didn't join WBXL till he was in 11th grade, I think it was. Tyler Coe. He graduated in 2013, and we made contact for a while, but then we stopped in 2017. So I have no idea what he's been up to for the last 7 years now.
Okay. Well, I'm sure at some time in the future, I'm sure you'll all reconnect again at some point. I'm planning to do, hopefully, because next year is WBXL's 50th anniversary, I'm hoping to do one of two things. I'm hoping to help coordinate some sort of in-person reunion event next year, number one, and also number two. Did you know that I coded my own radio station? And I'm hoping to get WBXL alumni to come on and do their own DJ shows on my station. So if that's something that you're interested in, you might want to reach out to those people you've mentioned, and if you're able to, and get back together in some, or do something in some capacity, whether it's coming back to Beeville for some sort of reunion event, or coming on my station to do a co-hosted show. Those are just options.
I would love to get together for a 50th anniversary reunion. 50 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And, it's been 13 years now, so I was last behind that microphone. And to this day, I still truly miss being behind the microphone. And, but I could try to get a hold of any of those three people that I've mentioned. on the idea, and but I would like to get together for 50th anniversary reunion.
Yes, again, that's just in the idea phase right now. Nothing has been planned specifically as of yet. And again, we have time because it's next year. So I'm sure there's got to be somebody to reach out to. Are you on that Facebook group? Are you on the Facebook group?
Yes, I am.
Great. That's a very good resource for connecting people and staying in touch. So I might post about it. So quickly, I wanted to shift gears. Another thing now. This was your time at the station. I wasn't there. I'd been out of school for about 3 years. But I do know that was the time when the studio went through a major renovation, or at least the equipment, the on-air booth had undergone a major upgrade or some sort of refresh. Can you tell me more? Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, I can. I back in 2011, they put 2 computer screens up there, and they had a connector so people could put in their iPods in it and play like music from there. And the computer software they use for their set list is Apple iTunes, what was then called iTunes, but now it's like Apple Music.
Okay.
So they had their own set list on the computer, but because I didn't like the majority of the songs that they would play, and they would play it over and over again, I just play stuff from my iPod since it had over 100 songs and it had a wide variety of artists that I liked. And they still have, the audio settings and the volume settings. And that's pretty much about it from what I can remember.
So were you in the station the fall of your senior year? Did you do the station the fall of your senior year? The fall semester of your senior year?
No, I did not. No, it was during the third and fourth quarter period. So
okay.
It was between, so from January to June of 2011. So so it was the last 5 months.
Okay, so that means you weren't aware of what we had, what they had before then. Based on what I remember, we had what are called instant replay machines, which were essentially glorified iPods. They were big, bulky machines that had different buttons on them, and songs were stored into that system where and then in a database. So in order to play a song, you'd have to look it up in the book. You'd have to punch a 3-digit number, and then once the system found that 3-digit number that matched up with the song, all you'd have to do is hit play. But it's not as sophisticated as what radio stations use now, where everything is pre-programmed. And it was hard to remember. Sometimes it was difficult to remember what 3-digit code number you had to use. So that's why they gave you these books. But it was primitive, dinosaur, compared to what we have now. Even my own radio station, it's all electronic, it's all digital, and it's definitely changed. And keep in mind, that was 17, 18, 19 years ago. So, and you know as much as I do how fast technology evolves and changes every day.
I don't blame you from there. And, if I did start at WBXL in September of 2008, the same year that I started Baker High School, I might have noticed it. And probably the transit. And I told myself and my family, if I had started WBXL during my 10th or 11th grade year, I probably would have canceled sports and focused on that and maybe try to do something differently than music, like sports announcing, especially with football, especially because 2009 and 2010, the football team won sectional champs, league champs, and then the regional champs. And back when I was in high school, some of the local radio stations did played high school radio football going on at the time, and I thought that might be perfect. And that was another thing I was fascinated with sports announcing. But you've got to be like have an insane knowledge towards like sports term. You've got to know the players that well for both teams, and understand some of the terminology and the plays. But and if I had started WBXL earlier, then I probably would have done that and try to see if I can make arrangements to move the equipment over to the stadium and probably broadcast it from there.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Yes, Z89 actually did they did broadcasts of high school football, and they still do all over the region, and they've been up to Beeville at times as well.
I remember them very well, and even the years after I graduated, they still did that. And then Time Warner Cable Sports, they came over to do that until they got bought off by Spectrum in 2016. But it's interesting to hear high school sports on radio, even if you don't get a good audience. It's still fun to do it.
Yes, I would imagine. I mean, that's one part of serving the community, and the shtick that I had for my show, and I meant to let me put it another way. When I knew that the station was a community service station, that was my mission to do. That's what I brought in. That's why I brought in guests from outside in the community to interview, because I was also interested in that kind of stuff. And I knew that my listeners would also be interested in what was going on in the community. So, and I actually got 2 awards for that. And we were able to keep our FM license because I was the only student at the time who actually carried on the mission of community service that the station was supposed to provide. So,
way to go.
Yeah, so we're almost done here. I do want to quickly ask you where, if the station, so you were talking about if you had not done WBXL over here, you would have done something else. What is it like now to think back and say, Baldwinsville is the only school district in the immediate CNY area to have its own radio station? That's such a unique opportunity. Looking back on it now, if you had gone to another district, or if Beeville didn't have the radio station, what would that have been? What would that have been like?
Probably miserable, because there are not that many high schools anywhere around the country that still have a radio. Believe it or not, Central Square, I think they did have their own radio station until 1991, but I just, let's just say I'm very glad that I definitely participated in WBXL, and if I didn't do it, I probably would have been miserable and depressed, because that was something that I've always wanted to do. And I'm just proud that, Baker High School has something that most schools don't even have anywhere around the country.
I'm with you there, exactly. My thoughts exactly. I would probably have been, my whole high school experience would have changed. Not just because of my experience, but the the friends that I had, the interpersonal connections that I had, in addition to the radio station. I was involved with the music. I was involved with the music program at Baker. I did the marching band, and then I also did the concert band and the drum line. And there were a couple of people who I remember that did both, just like me. They were also in band, but then they also did the radio station. And so that's where I felt my niche. That's where I kind of felt my tribe in a way. One person in particular who actually was good friends with the Nagy. There's a Nagy connection for you. So again, let me trace that back. So as I told you off the top, I graduated with Liz Nagy, who you would probably know as Alex Nagy's older sister and David Fink's older cousin. Does that make any sense?
Yep, I know them. I know them. And believe it or not, the whole Nagy family and the Finks, they went to Van Buren Elementary School. I went to Van Buren Elementary School. So I've known them for years, if not decades.
Okay, that's good.
So
there was a good friend of the Nagy. So there was another girl who was a good friend of the Nagy family, who played she played the trumpet in the band, but then she was also one of the general managers of WBXL. She was co-general manager of WBXL. Do you know anybody named Hannah? I don't know if you knew Hannah Celestino.
I've heard of her. I've heard of her.
Okay. That sounds right, because you're friends with your Nagy connection. That makes sense to me. So just that was an example of the connections that I made that now kind of connect over to you. So I like this interview. I'm sad that it's ending, because it sounds like you and we share very similar interests, not just music, sports. Are you still into sports? Are you a big sports fan still?
Not as much as I used to. I mean, I follow the New York Yankees once in a while. Not as much with NFL football anymore. I completely stopped following Baldwinsville football after my brother graduated high school in 2014, because I know some of the players that played with my brother. Well, he didn't play football, but I knew a lot of people that graduated in 2012, 2013, and 2014. So after my brother graduated, I completely stopped, but I still make contact with Coach Sam Flippo once in a while, since he's still head coach. And then, and I stated earlier, I have not made contact with Alex Nagy in about 10 years now. We have the same. Our birthdays are 2 days apart. So,
wow.
So yeah. So, we used to celebrate birthdays together, and then he and I were good friends with another guy whose birthday was in the middle. So mine was December 16th. Alex Nagy is December 18th. And there's a guy named Matt Kelnam who just texted me earlier this morning. His is December 17th. So we all get to celebrate all at once. But
that's crazy. That's crazy.
It is. But, the
funny. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
So interesting. My friend is a Yankees fan. We actually went down to New York City to watch them play the Rays, and unfortunately got beat on Sunday. This was Sunday the 21st.
Yeah. But what was I going to say? You remember earlier you were saying that you were in marching band. I was in orchestra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I play violin. So yeah, I was in the orchestra with Mrs. Hollis as the teacher and the conductor at the time.
Yes,
And
my younger sister Rachel played the viola. She was class of 2008.
nice. And then of course, when we started the interview, I stated that my dad was in a band, and
Yeah.
the very last song that I played on WBXL was actually a song that my dad wrote. So for the first time and only time in his life, I played one of his songs on the radio.
Oh, nice.
So it was for him.
Is that anywhere online? Is that anywhere available to listen to?
No, but I still have that song on my iPod, and I actually recorded my last show through a flip video, and then in the past, my mom has also recorded some of my shows that I did in the past. I tried to get a hold of my guidance counselor a few years after I graduated to see if any audio recorded of my show still exists, but the problem was, unfortunately, they all got deleted it because they had to make room for new shows.
Okay. Do you have any of your flip videos, or do you not have access to those as well?
I have to take a look at some of my hard drives that I have. So I do plan to look for it in the future, and then I'm also going to try to find some of my other transcripts that I did in the past, because besides the 80s trivia and some of the bands I've researched, I've done research on music festivals, and then there was an unusual festival. It was about a skateboard festival that was going on, and it was like concert and skateboards at the same time. I forgot what was called back then, but I actually did that and play some of the songs affiliated with bands that were going to be at these shows. And if we do this 50th anniversary next year, I got to find those transcripts and the video footage of some of the shows I did in the past, and present it to y'all.
Yes, that would be exciting. Speaking of festivals, you're into music. I'm just curious. Did you know what was going on? I knew what was happening with the Fire FYRE Fest. What's your take on that whole debacle? The FYRE Fire Fest. Did you even hear about that, or no?
No, I don't know anything about this.
Okay. So in 2017 or 2018, I think it was Ja Rule who was behind it. They were going to do a big music festival out in the Caribbean. I think it was either Jamaica, Bahamas. It's supposed to be a remote island, and people got a lot of tickets. A lot of people got tickets for it, but when they showed up at the supposed site, it was a whole logistical disaster. And the guy behind it actually faced criminal charges. It was so there was no festival. People who camped out there faced horrific environmental conditions, and they just got ripped off as a scam.
Jeez. That's awful.
I know. I'm glad I wasn't part of. And the interesting thing was, even though I wasn't a music industry student, I went to Syracuse University, and they're recording. They're recording. I think what it was called, the Bandier recording and entertainment program, or the recording and allied entertainment, their music industry program presented lectures that anybody could attend, and one of the presenters who spoke at that one particular lecture was from the Fire Festival. So that's where I heard about it. Then I discovered it on the news after it happened.
Wow.
So, if you want more information, I'll share some articles. I'll send them to your email. If you're interested, I'll send some articles to your email. Are you also you're on Facebook? Can I also friend request you on Facebook or other social media? What other social media do you use?
Just Facebook.
Okay. I'll find you and I'll send you a friend request if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the things that I like to do to close these interviews is, first of all, anything else you want to add before we shut down the show tonight?
I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time to interview me and doing this podcast. You know, I really appreciate it. And, you know, it's great to talk about, you know, learning about WBXL and my time doing that. I still miss doing it to this day. And I really hope that you and I will get together with a whole bunch of other DJs to do this 50th anniversary and maybe do another podcast in the near future.
I mean, that's my goal. And again, it's only in the planning stages. It hasn't been executed. But there's got to be, I know there's others who want to do this as well. And then if you want to come on my station, I'd love for you to check out my station. I actually hand-coded it myself. I have experience with JavaScript and HTML, so I actually hand-coded it. If you wanted to check it out, I'll send you the link for that as well. I do a show on Saturday. I do my own show on Saturday nights at 8 if you want to check it out also.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So this is the fun thing that I always have my guests do to sign off. Just go, imagine you're in front of the mic at WBXL and sign us off. Take us home. Sign us off, please.
All right, kids. That ends today's podcast. See y'all in the mosh pit soon. Peace out, y'all.
Thanks again for listening to The Buzz Goes Gold, a podcast celebrating 50 years of broadcasting excellence on WBXL 90.5 FM. This podcast is produced exclusively by the alumni of WBXL, with hosting duties by yours truly, Jordan Hayes, class of 07, and the intro voiced by Rick DiUlio. Many special thanks go out to WJPZ alumnus John Jag Gay, class of 2002, for the inspiration behind this podcast and his helpful tips and advice for making it go.